G'day YouTube, Warbles on a lot here. Those of you familiar with the channel are probably aware that I've been pondering the concept of micrometeorological delivery systems within the cosmic scoreboard effect as administered by my imagined view of a universal creator God theory, which is worth paying attention to me, for me. You don't have to pay attention to it, but I like to try and imagine a universal creator God theory worth believing in. And I modify my behaviour accordingly. I don't think the universal creator God theory is much in favour of economic growth, because economic growth involves environmental destruction, and I'm a panentheist, so I see everything in the entire universe as being a conscious part of the God theory. And the prime function of the biosphere is the more life occupies the space, the more life can occupy the space. So a rainforest is the pinnacle with all those interdependent species and the whole thing flourishing on what used to be a volcanic island in the ocean with nothing but bare rocks and rain on it. And that becomes a rainforest. The more life occupies a space, the more life can occupy the space, as each additional species creates niches for multiple other species to fill. Whereas the broadacre death cult of agroculture, the cult of harvest everythingism, is the exact opposite of biology and ecology. The agrocultist plans on wiping out the existing ecology so that they've got more soil and more water and more light to grow a single plant species, either for harvest and transportation to market and sale at a profit in order to distribute dividends, or to feed a single line-bred or artificial animal species to get a surplus so that they can drove the animals to markets and sell them at a profit. And so progressively for 12,500 years, the rainforest has been getting turned into a desert. And I suspect that what Lovelock saw as being the Gaia hypothesis has kind of got the shits with the agrocultists. And we're now seeing very small, very intense weather systems moving around. And sometimes it's hail, and sometimes it's wind, and sometimes it's torrential rain and flash floods, and sometimes it's a really intense, really hot little drought, followed by a couple of hot windy days, and then some dry lightning storms. And I've been wondering at the micrometeorological delivery system's accuracy. Does it operate on Blunderbus-Effect? If there's one person who's voted against global warming surrounded by a whole bunch of people who've been voting to grow the economy, and there's a whole lot of bad weather upwind, is everybody going to get hammered equally? I mean, bear in mind that once upon a time, a carpenter who didn't work in his father's workshop because he was too busy talking to the God-botherers, he once said, the rain falls equally on the just and the unjust. But he was a townie. He didn't live out in the environment. What does a townie who grew up in a woodwork shop know about rainfall? I mean, I've lived in a place called Skeleton Creek, where on the east side of me, I had a moo cow farmer who had 50% tree cover, and he had waist-high green grass. And on the west of me, I had a bloke who was growing lucerne so that he could bale it up and take it away and sell it. And he had waist-high, deep green lucerne. And all day it had been a hot, sunny day, blue sky, and the sun was beating down. And I was renting renting a house from a sheep farmer. And the sheep farm was overstocked, and it had grass blades about that high. And if you looked down, you could see sand between the grass blades, And the sun's been beating down on that sand all day, and it's been reflecting off the trees to the east, and it's been reflecting off the lucerne to the east, because sand and trees and lucerne have a different albedo, that's reflecting power. The Earth used to have a reflecting power of 39%. Of all the sunlight hit it, bounced off. But that was in the 1970s. It's now 28%, 26%. because so much forest has been cleared to bare the soil for the agro-cultists to do their broad acre death cult harvest everythingism trick. But anyway, back to the story. What was happening in the afternoon, the orographic routine went on where the sea breeze kicked in and it started blowing moist air from the coast up against the escarpment and pushing that wet air up, and as it went up it cooled down, and as it cooled down it approached dew point and it condensed into clouds, and then the sea breeze pushed it further towards the west, and by the time it got to the moo cow farmer it was raining on him. So he's getting rained on, cooled down, moisture and all that good stuff. And I'm sitting on the sheep farm, renting the house, and as soon as the cloud crossed the boundary fence, the little raindrops, instead of falling down through the cool air, they run into the hot air coming up off the hot sand that's been sunbaked and is still getting sunbaked by the sun coming in from the west, because the cloud hasn't got far enough to the west that it can block the sun. So I watched the raindrops turn into what some humorist called thousands of years ago virga. Because, you know, like a virgin, they don't go all the way. So the virga starts falling, then it evaporates and it goes back up into the cloud. And then the sea breeze pushes that cloud that's prick teasing all the way across the sheep farm. And when it gets over the cool air on the lucerne farm, all of a sudden the virgin goes all the way to the ground. Yeah. He gets wet, sheep farmer does not get wet, because the rain does not fall equally on the just and the unjust. If you overgraze your patch that you're responsible for, you don't deserve to get rained on a hot sunny day. Not when your neighbours who are doing the right thing deserve to be rained on. So my observational opinions, observation-based opinions, for a long time have been along the leaning towards the Micrometeorology delivery department using a sniper rifle for precision rather than a blunderbuss for general coverage. But just lately I've been able to look at the Bureau of Meteorology's weather radar, and they show you a tape loop which shows what's happened for the previous 90 minutes plus what's going to happen for the next 90 minutes. And I don't know how they do their predictions for the tracking of the storm cells for 90 minutes into the future, but I haven't seen any more than a 5% error rate. If I look on their radar map and it shows me intense storms hammering the shit out of Moree, predicted to go and beat the crap out of Walgett and Warialda and Inverell, that's what happens, dunk, 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 dunk. And then when it gets between Inverell and here, which is a matter of 48 miles or 80 kilometres, somewhere in there, I don't know whether it's 14 or 16 times, but it's happened consecutively where I've stopped what I was doing to pay attention to the sky and my phone with the bomb on it. These intense storms with either hail or torrential rain or destructive winds, the cell of intensity has divided into two. And it's been on slightly divergent tracks, and one's gone about 1 kilometre to the north and other one's gone anywhere from 1 kilometre to 10 kilometres to the south. And on one day back there, I actually recorded it in the build-up, and foolishly I stopped the camera, and then 5 minutes later I had to start it again because it was just such a spectacular show going on in the valley on the other side of the hills. And at Emerville, which is about 25 kilometres that away, they had 7 centimetre in diameter hail, like thump, 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 the sort of stuff that would totally destroy here. And that storm went to the north of us. And then the other part of it, it went a bit further south, a bit south of the town, and it wandered on down, and it dropped 8 centimetre hail at Jack Adgery, because the hail had had time to go up and down a few more times and accrete more ice on the outside. And I had a few little hailstones here about the size of my little fingernail, and I saw a few hailstone hits on the ultraviolet cover of the Chinese inflatable swimming pool. And of course the intensity of the hits is rather determined by the overhang of the tea tree, But I thought we'd got away with it. And the big ones, I don't know whether that was that particular storm or a later one, but the point is that the smaller hailstone hits, one of them scored an absolute perfect hit on the little plastic stalk that holds the half an egg cup on the anemometer. And not only did it hit the thing, it hit it out about there, and the little end piece got broken off, and I never found a bit over a centimetre. Now, I don't know what the weather station cost because it was a present from my daughter, but I'm going to guess that it's probably between $110 and $150. And you can't buy a new windmill for your anemometer. And if you haven't got a wind speed sensor on your weather station, then you're not going to get any weather data, and that's going to mean that it's just going to irritate you every time you look at the display on the wall. So that one little hailstone, as big as the end of my little fingernail, while that thing was rotating, probably 300 to 600 revs a minute, because there was a gust coming through as the hail came in, it's had a direct hit. So we're not only talking sniper rifle type precision, we're talking deflection shooting, as in you've got to hit a moving object. Your target tracking and your identification, your calculation, everything's got to be spot on. But apart from a few extra holes in an old ultraviolet cover, which costs $39 and gets replaced every year anyway, and generally by the time it's evaporated enough of its volatiles in the sunlight, if it's brittle enough to be penetrated by little tiny hailstones, it's right on the point of replacement. So that's immaterial, doesn't matter much at all. Hello, I'm doing grandfather babysitting duty again today, am I? You going to hide under the car and have a rest while your mother goes off playing with boyfriends? That's okay. Right, but in among all this other stuff, nothing got damaged. The kangaroo didn't get frightened. And although the wind has made a hell of a mess of my attempts at repairing the old ultraviolet damaged fly, the tent fly suffered from hail damage, rather more than the ultraviolet cover on the swimming pool did. But it's only the nylon 1.5-year-old tent fly, which really should be replaced every year, that suffered. The 3.5-year-old cotton canvas tent underneath the fly, it's still intact, and it hasn't been torn down by the violently intense extreme weather events which have been going past here. Maybe 1,000 metres to the north, and sometimes 10 or 15 kilometres to the south. And I have no idea how such feats of precision micrometeorology delivery are organised or effected. All I know is believing that it's possible is about the only way I can sort of comfort my own anxieties when the weather's looking a bit threatening, and I can plan and prepare as much as I bloody well like. But regardless of my preparations, if the sky decides to get angry, all I can do is sort of sit around down here and hope that I'm not scheduled to get too hard a kick in the arse from the extreme, intense, record-breaking weather events that are streaming past to the left of me and going by to the right of me and hammering the shit out of everybody who ever voted to grow the economy. I'm just hoping that I get let off lightly with nothing worse than a broken windmill on the anemometer of my wind speed sensor on the weather station. And of course, me being me, I'm not going to throw out away. My daughter's put in a bid for it. She'd like to have it even without a wind speed sensor, but Bondic exists. So it does. And therefore, thus and because, first, I thought we might use some Sally's power grip as well as the dividers from my father's tech drawing set that I used when I was in high school to determine the precise distance from the cup to the hub of the rotor head. And the power grip has been used to attach the broken stalk back onto the egg cup. The distance has been measured against the other stalks on the other undamaged egg cups. And then, in order to more or less correctly mould the Bondic, stickiness of the tape was wrapped around. And then the Bondic was applied a little at a time and cured in stages after each layer, held in by the sticky tape inside that little channel. And I don't know whether it'll work, but it might, and it'll probably work better than not trying and giving it away or throwing it out. So now I've just got to go over there and stick a bit of Bondic onto the rotor hub and then anastomatose the two. And we will see what we will see. Whether I've repaired the lesson learned in micrometeorological delivery systems, or whether I've wasted my morning and made a movie to the vanity of my own ego. Time will tell, and because I'm going to be working on top of the ladder, I'm not really going to be able to hold the camera in one ear hole while working with both hands standing up there trying to get the Bondic in the right place. So yeah, you'll see what happened afterwards. Right, job done. Not perfect, and probably not perfectly balanced, but it's a hell of a lot more likely to tell me something about the wind speed now than it would have when it only had 2 egg cups. So there you go, and now you know. Micrometeorology and how you experience it and what's coming from your personal upwind direction, I think depends on largely on how you've been behaving, how you've been deciding, what you've been choosing, and what you voted for. What sort of weather have you been voting for? Hey, did you vote for global warming, or did you vote to preserve and protect the environment and the ecology? Warbles on a lot to YouTube. Try not to break anything else and see what you can do to fix things, eh? Ciao.